Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Blab session. I'm Reverend Catherine Ewing, and I'm delighted to be here tonight for another episode of Birth Your Divine Feminine. And I'm especially excited to have our guest from down under. It's tomorrow morning for her, so we're pretty impressed that we actually managed to pull this off. Penelope Aelfin. Am I pronouncing your last name?
Yeah, that's yes, because AE is like that Irish bit, the Celtic bit of.
So we are relatively new friends, really just getting to know each other. So rather than my try to introduce or do a bio of Penelope, I'm just going to allow her to speak for herself. I'm excited to share that you've just come out with your new book. So
yeah, well. Been around for a little while. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Penelope Aelfin. I'm known as the soul separation detective, actually, and I'm the founder of Heal Your Separation. And Heal Your Separation is a platform to work with women and assist them in healing the loss and the pain. I'm reading this because it's easier. Loss and the pain and overwhelm and heartbreak and separation in their lives. This platform provides a bridge and a lifeline to reconnect back into the center of their core being. The pillars I use are know yourself, be yourself, love yourself. It's a profound journey that transports women away from that life of pain, loss, and lack of connection into a world of honesty, alignment, and their true divine self-authority. So that's what I do. I assist women in helping them heal themselves.
Awesome. I'm listening. It's so interesting how we use slightly different language, but ultimately the work that we do is so aligned. I'll say for those people who may be listening for the first time and who don't know who I am and my work, as I said, I'm Reverend Catherine Ewing. I'm in the process of rebranding right now into this new business called Sacred Heart Alchemy, where my work again is also around helping women to really know the truth of who they are and to come back to love and heal separation within themselves and in the world. And my background is as a grassroots social worker, so a lot of work in the areas of women's empowerment, domestic violence, sexual assault, rape crisis work, child abuse, so a lot of social and economic justice, a lot of very grassroots challenging work. And then from there, I went into psychotherapy. So I have 25 years now as a psychotherapist. Started doing energy healing in the late 90s. So that's been almost 20 years already, hard to believe. And over the years have really become sort of an expert in trauma and helping women heal beyond the level of their mind and really combining the psychotherapy, the ministry, sort of the spiritual and metaphysical approach, the energy healing, the trauma work, and especially EFT to release those patterns from the energy field, which I think is critical. We can't just talk our way into healing, right? Penelope, and I'm sure we'll talk about this some more. We really need to do the work to release those old patterns and programming. Whoops. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Join us again. And so that's my work that I do as a coach and a mentor and a counselor, if you will. And then I'm also giving birth to something that I call the Divine Feminist. And this is kind of where the idea for this Blab series came up. And the Divine Feminist, as I see it, is the next evolution of feminism, where we're stepping into women as being the change makers and really stepping into our power, but from the feminine model, not the old feminist fight against, but the feminine the divine feminine model of collaboration and intuition and fluidity and compassion and values, core values and ways of being that have not been really all that present in the last 2,000 years on the planet. So really seeing this as a huge shift. So with that being said, I'm going to stop talking again for a few moments. And Penelope, ask you to talk a little more about your personal story and how it is that you came into this work and how they relate to each other.
Yes. Okay. Good hour or something.
We can take all the time you want. It's our blast, baby. We can do whatever we want with it.
Okay. I'll as concise as I can. I'm getting feedback. Should I put on headphones?
You could try. I'm going to turn down my volume. I realize sometimes when the volume is up, sometimes that feedback happens. So let's see how that works.
Still happening. Yeah, the feedback's still happening a bit. Oh, that's better.
I'm not hearing anything.
It might be my internet, although it's good at the moment. Let's get into the thing. Originally I come from England. Oh boy, that feedback is very strong. Is there anything we can do about that?
Can you check your volume control first of all, and just try turning your speakers down?
How does that sound? Is that better?
Well, it sounded okay to me all along. I think that happened to me the other day. I was hearing myself.
Yeah.
And then it just stopped. I think sometimes the platform may just be a little bit.
Okay, that sounds better. No, it's still doing feedback. Anyway, we'll continue. I'll see if I can focus on that one. I originally come from England, and I came to Australia in my mid-20s, and I laughingly say I ran away from home, which seems strange in the middle 20s. But I came from a very middle-class country family that had very high values and conservative, and everything should be done this way, this way, this way. And growing up in the 60s, that didn't always sit very well. So I always wanted to go and explore something else. But what really probably set me on this journey of inquiry is that I wasn't very well as a teenager. And when at the age of sort of 18 or 19, I got really bad arthritis where I couldn't hold a knife or fork, or I couldn't walk. I was quite, I could be active, but I couldn't do things. And it's really difficult when you get up in the mornings and you can't put any weight on your feet. And so you can't live a normal life. And so
I just wonder, it's such a young age to have something like arthritis be that debilitating. Was there, what's up with that? Why?
Well, I'm a very sensitive soul, and I think coming into the family that I did, I sat on so many things when I was younger. I was never allowed to have my own voice, express what I wanted to do, even follow the dreams that I had. It was like a preset course. I am their daughter, so this is what I have to do. And I think being the spirit that I am was actually quite devastating, because I felt I never got heard, I never was understood, I was never met. I was looked after lovingly, but the nurturing and the self-caring was not an evident thing in our family. As long as you got good food and you were looked after and you had a roof over your head, that's constituted. That's how it was in those days.
Good parenting. That was good. That was good
parenting. That was good parenting. Yeah. Together with being put in a pram for 4 hours, the Dr. Spock stuff, and then you picked up and you're fed, and then for 4 hours there's nobody there. You're not held. You're not loved. You're nothing. So being this extra sensitive empath that I am, that actually was very tough on the nervous system, and consequently came out in ways like arthritis, and I had a very bad skin disease, which we found out later was a nervous condition. So I was on cortisone, and that helped with the inflammation, but it never solved the root of the problem. I then got married to somebody that my parents didn't agree with, and we came to Australia to get away from the family drama. And I met a wonderful man who is an acupuncturist who literally, I walked in with my hands like that when I had one of my attacks. Within 15 minutes, my hands did that. And that, to me, was a miracle. So he set me on a path of inquiry, of different diets, of, like not drinking and smoking and all that sort of thing, getting off meat, becoming a vegetarian, and in particular, looking at my background history. So that, at the age of 27, 28, and at that stage I was in corporate. I had a very it was sort of very stressful. It was very long hours, but I loved it. It was in the beauty industry, and I was building a brand in Australia, and I worked my guts out, and I just loved it. And I played hard and worked hard. But at least the emphasis of that incredible physical problem had dissipated, because I then learnt that a session with a few needles of acupuncture actually relieved the problem. And whilst I started inquiring into my background and what that meant for me and how I'd turned out, the defences, the armouring and everything that I'd actually put in place to keep me safe. I'm
just curious, have you ever looked at Louise Hay's explanation of arthritis?
Yes.
Do you remember what it? I mean,
no, I can't remember because it's amongst a lot of my things. But it's about not being able to move forward. It's a total suppression. Anger
and resentment.
Yeah, well, of course.
Those are the two key emotions: anger and resentment.
Key emotion, and anger is really repressed passion, where you haven't been allowed to actually express that. And resentment goes in the fact that you can't actually be heard, be understood. Nobody sees you. And one of the most uncomfortable things, I think, for anybody on this planet is to walk the planet and not be seen, not be met. Does that word work for you? Not met?
It's like I completely understand that. It's like the movie Avatar, the I see you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It took a long time for somebody to say I see you in my life, and I went, oh my gosh, how wonderful is that? So that whole scenario in my mid-20s took me down a pathway of learning about health, nutrition, primarily because of my diet and everything. So I got quite clever on that, and then I ended up looking at all the emotional stuff and going into spiritual work at the age, my early 30s. And so I've probably been in this industry now for a good 35 years, not a bit longer, in various aspects. But it brought me to being a kinesiologist for 20 odd years. And following many different healing modalities like theta healing, spiritual, medical, intuitive work, and that kind of stuff.
Oh, so you really dove in deeply into the spiritual and healing modalities.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, and at the same time I was doing interior design. So I was actually doing the creative stuff, which is the stuff I wanted to do when I was 17 or 18 and was never allowed to. So I had that full expression of my creative artistic side, but yet I was doing, I learned kinesiology for my own health, but I ended up, being a therapist for 20 years and teaching it. So it's interesting how our little paths take us down different tracks. And then I had what I call my black decade, which was probably menopausal time. Both my parents died within 8 months of each other. My husband had a heart attack. I went bankrupt, lost my money. It's like, let's put it all in one pot, and year by year, let's do a little bit more, So I call it my black decade, but I look at it and the gifts have been enormous from that. Yeah. And in every adversity, there's a gift. So
right.
that to me has to be one of my ruling sort of mantras of the day. What is in this for me to actually gain? There's got to be a pearl somewhere.
What's the gift here?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most difficult things for women to understand, bringing it back to the divine feminine, because we have been done to for so many years. And I was doing some reading the other day, and it was very interesting where someone was writing the fact that before 5,000 or 6,000 years of the patriarchy, we had the matriarchy. And it was almost like the matriarchy decided on a group consciousness level to actually step away from this control, so that the patriarchy or masculine could actually develop and learn how to be a true masculine role. And so we have to take responsibility a little bit about what's happening today in the feminist area. And I think we need to, it's the new way where we both need to become masculine and feminine.
Right. And, I think,
and embrace that.
There's a distinction to be made between the egoic masculine or feminine, right? When we're just all in our mind, and
thank you for that. I was about to go there.
The power and the control and the greed and the direction and the need to get ahead, right? That's generally seen as masculine energy, but it's really the masculine out of balance with itself, right? The egoic masculine out of balance with the divine masculine. And then the same can happen, also with the feminine sort of, weak and wishy-washy and not making decisions and wanting to be taken care of. And, that's not really powerfully divine feminine either. That's, sort of more the acculturated, kind of victim mentality. So it's not only masculine and feminine, but it's the distinction between the ego and the heart-centered or the really divine. And then it's, as you just said, it's looking at it within ourselves. I was told through, friends of mine who were pretty psychic, as well as through my own meditations or journaling, that part of my work on the planet, if you will, was to balance the masculine and the feminine energy. And I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, I grew up with 6 brothers, so I have a pretty lot of masculine energy. I've never been a girly girl, I don't think I ever owned a little black dress, like I just, So it was really interesting for me to go through this journey of coming more into my feminine, but not losing the drive and the direction and the ability to, sort of set goals and move forward at the same time, because you can sort of get out of balance yourself. So it's finding the balance within ourselves and then anchoring that, and then that resonates out into the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's sort of my version of heaven on earth, right? When when men and women are balanced in their masculine and feminine, and my particular piece of that now, as I understand it, so many years later, as I keep following my heart and my guidance and getting better at that, like you, is to heal, for me, what I call the feminine wound or the woman wound personally, and the part that's been part of the prevailing culture and societal, so the subjugation of women, that, we all carry that, whether or not we have an individual history of having been abused or, violated in any way. It's just in the collective, as Carl Jung would say, right? It's in the collective consciousness that we all carry it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And if I can go a little bit further on the story, I actually left my corporate job after 8 or 10 years because I didn't like who I was becoming, because I was becoming balls on high heels. But the thing in the 70s and 80s, you had to. Otherwise, you wouldn't survive. And I was the only female management person in that company. And I had to drink with the boys, eat with the boys, play with the boys to actually be accepted. Or that was the impression that I had.
Well, and many women. I mean, we saw the briefcase.
We still do it today. We still do it today.
And that's when I referenced earlier. We were trying to be feminists and go out and work and have equality and be equal, but we were doing it in a very male-dominated model and in a very male-driven way. Fighting against having to get we sort of had to. That was those were the rules at that time.
Yeah.
And I think we both men and women have suffered, if you will, as a result of that, because we could have a whole nother show on that probably too. But now that's where I see this divine feminist coming in, where we can step into our power without having to adopt that masculine way of being. So it's, yes, we want equality. Yes, we want balance and equal treatment and to have our voice and to be in our own power, but in the way of using our intuition and being fluid and working collaboratively instead of competitively, and having, I think for women, you've talked very eloquently already about the need to be seen and heard. And I think supported in community for women is another really big piece of that. And that old model almost put us in competition with each other, often put us in competition with each other, whether it was for the job, whether it was to get ahead, whether it was for the boyfriend or the husband. And now and women learn not to trust each other and not to trust themselves.
Yeah, this is what I come back to, and this is probably the reason that I'm doing the work that I'm doing, because until we resolve the conflict within ourselves between our masculine and feminine, it's nothing about there. I mean, we will only do what we're doing in here. So this is the part that needs healing. The separation within the ego and the soul. It's about embracing all of it and not being driven by the egoic voice, and it being actually allowing the heart to open and for that to actually be your leader. But there's a lot of work, because I was listening to a very interesting conversation on the Consciousness Men's Summit, which was a couple of months ago, but I just listened to one of the calls yesterday. And it's so beautiful to hear the men talk about the men and history, the history of men, and how they were taught of what to believe, not to believe, the unconscious beliefs that we automatically do in our lives because we're so much in denial of it. And this was one of the things that I think with women, we're in denial of aspects of ourselves that have never seen the light of day. Never. And we can look at it from an egoic perspective, which is all the personal development stuff that I've done over the last 25, 30 years. Mm-hmm. But it only takes you so far. The spiritual work that I've done takes me into arrogance. So somewhere in between all of that, there is this settlement of these two beautiful aspects and coming back to the innocence of our own hearts, like we were as children, and marrying ourselves on that level. And until we do that, it's really hard to have a proper relationship with ourselves, therefore a relationship with another intimate or a primary relationship, and therefore relationships with all the world. So while we're at war in ourselves, there will always be war outside of us.
Yeah. My ordination was in spiritual peacemaking. And the whole premise is that we must become peace within ourselves first, right? In order to vibrate that into the world. Because if we're not that, we won't ever create that. You can't create peace from a place of unpeace or war, right? So I think you said when we're at war with ourselves, and I still think sadly so many people are walking around every day at war with themselves.
Which is a repressed feeling. And at the same time, there is this deep hole inside of this yearning to be in connection with ourselves.
Right.
So again, another paradox
for what hasn't been loved. One of my, I don't know if you have read the book, Whatever Arises, Love That. It's
Matt Kahn is, he was one of my mentors a few years ago. He's been very instrumental in my life, let's put it that way, in the last few years.
Well, I was
lucky enough to have a few personal sessions with him, which was
nice. Well, I've just really gotten to know him and, or his work really in the last month or so. And so I'm reading the book, Whatever Arises, Love That. And I'm sharing it with clients. I'm reading to them. They're sobbing on the other end of the Skype call or the phone or in my office, because we're all walking around with these aspects of ourselves, as he calls it, the next one in line that needs to be loved, right?
To be loved.
To be loved.
Yeah.
And that's the work. I mean, you and I are right on the same page with that. That's really the work that we seem to be here to do, which is to lead people into that healing place through the heart. I mean, sacred heart alchemy, that's.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I woke up this morning going, not feeling 100%. What's going on? And I went, okay. A few I love yous to that one that's not feeling 100% this morning. And within 5 minutes, I was jumping out of bed. It was like, thank you for noticing me. It was, I don't know what it was. I didn't need to label it. Yeah. It was just something that needed my attention because it was just slightly out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think I love Matt's work so much. And I am very grateful for him. Actually, probably he opened my eyes to another degree that I hadn't had opened before.
I was having a conversation with my friend Mal Duane, who is also a women's coach and an inspirational speaker, and I happened to mention this book, and she sent me a link today because we were talking about relationship issues and how even when difficult things happen in relationships, or especially when difficult things happen in relationships, that there's, I always believe that there are soul contracts in place, and that, some of our best teachers are the people that we have these soul contracts with, and, the most difficult. And Mal has just been through a very challenging several years around her marriage, and she spoke freely about it, so I don't feel like I'm sharing anything, out of school, if you will. But she sent me a link today to a video of Matt's talking about soul contracts, twin flames, soulmates, and so I'm curious to listen to that this evening after our call.
Yeah, I mean, just go to Matt's YouTube channel, and you can sit there for hours.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous. I feel like I could probably get lost there.
You could get lost there, but there's something about Matt. I mean, he talks about when he's doing his YouTube, his gatherings, is that he's actually downloading. So you're actually getting the frequency and yourself through that transmission.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in only working with people who actually who have the space to be able to do that. And I think we all have the space to be able to hold people in safety so they can do their own healing. And that's what he actually does. He holds the space enough for you to feel safe enough to, to actually do the work that you need to do. Mm-hmm. But I love him. I've put a lot of people in touch with him, and he actually created a whole new direction for me 2 years ago. And yeah, it was very challenging at the time.
Part of the Heal Your Separation work that you're doing?
Yes, yeah. It's taken me into that, out of the mind, because I was still very much into the mind of what I wanted to create, and on a way. And I'd just written my book, and I'd actually taken time out to live in Bali, and while I was there, I wrote it. And what was interesting is that he And I'm going into flusters about how am I going to get it out there and all that sort of stuff because I don't know how to do this. And he said, it's a gift from God. God wrote through you, and just allow the universe to do something with it. And I took all the pressure off. You know, it was like, oh, okay. And he said, it may be just only for your healing that you've done this, and it may be that it will help others. But it's not your business to be concerned about it. You've done the job that you were supposed to do. And it was like, whoa. And it was just such a different mindset that what Matt did was help me get into my heart. You know, and after all having been, I mean, I've had therapy most of my life since I came to Australia, and it's like none of that. It was definitely steps on the way, and I'm really grateful. This piece that I've been looking for all my life was to actually sink into my heart and to be open-hearted and compassionate and be really, really loving and love myself to such a degree that nobody else out there can probably do. And that's the real lesson. We can't be filled up with everything from the outside. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you know, it sounds so cliche. We've been hearing it our whole lives. Well, you have to love yourself before anybody else can love you, right? And we hear it so much, and it's said sort of matter-of-factly. And, you know, it takes, for me, it's taken, you know, a number of years and a level of maturity to realize how true that really is. Even as I've been doing the work I've been doing over these last 35 years, you know, if I'm really honest with myself, I have to say, even though I've been telling people, you know, love yourself, and we tap and we say, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, and I've been doing that for 10 years now, but there's a level of getting it. Like when you just said, can you, you know, to be met, right? It's sort of that same energy. At a certain point, you just get it in a different way, what loving yourself really means.
It brings tears when I hear you say that. There's a few tears in my eyes of going, there's no words.
Yeah. You know, with Matt's book, with some of my clients, I have just read some of his mantras to them. Just, I am worthy, I matter, right? My feelings are important. I have a purpose in being here. And it just brings, it brings me to tears, and it brings them to tears, because it just cuts through everything else. And this is the part of the feminine. You know, we're talking about this birthing your divine feminine or finding your feminine power. And this, for me, in the heart is the seat of that. It's just where we hold that energy. And when we can come back here and remember that, it's just so powerful.
What I've just got when you were saying that is what we're actually giving ourselves is the gift of meeting and being in that. You know how we say we're not met by others? I've just got, turn it around to me again. It's because there's nothing outside of myself. There's a bit of Course in Miracles for you. It's if I meet myself in that space, then there's nothing else that I need. And we don't.
Sorry, I just got like this.
Thank you. Whoever said that, thank you. No, but it is. It's yeah, I let me just, if I can find it, there's something here that I wrote the other day, is that we're so fearful of standing in the power of our own innocence, of our own hearts, that we step aside from all of that. We try and, you know, in every way. And if we can just move to the center and into that innocence of our heart, so we allow and we receive from our own self, from our own God. That's completion of who we are.
Yeah. as you said that, well, a couple of things came to mind. I was listening to an interview on Jacqueline Johnson's You Awakening. It was either You Awakening or Beyond the Ordinary. I can't remember. And the fellow, actually, he English was not his first language, so instead of the word wellspring, he used the word spring well. He got it backwards, but there was something about him getting it backwards that, like, it just created this visual for me, and I've been holding that awareness ever since that, and maybe it was intentional on his part, of that I am the wellspring of everything that I've ever needed or wanted.
Okay.
And that's
lovely.
Yeah. So I had a client come in yesterday it was, and she texted me earlier in the day and she said, is there any chance I can get in today? I'm having a really bad day. And I had some time available, so I went, and she's just on the other side of a divorce, and she was just going, through a rough day. And as we do when we have losses and the ends of something that we had hopes and dreams for. And she's a little hard on herself, like many of us. I've certainly been there and can still be there myself. And, it was like, well, it's over. It's done. We've had the divorce. Why am I still feeling this way? I shouldn't be feeling this way, right? How many times have we heard that? I shouldn't be feeling this way. And I said, darling, you are feeling that way. There's no should or shouldn't. You are. So I was using a little bit of Matt's language, and I said, imagine that those feelings that you're trying to push away and just power through, the hurt, the sadness, the loneliness, the blaming yourself because now the husband's on to another relationship, the ex-husband's on to another relationship. Normal. Yeah. And her saying, maybe it really was me, maybe there was something wrong with me. And I said, what if you, I said, you have two beautiful children. Do you remember when they were younger, if they were in the other room and you got on the phone, somehow, even though they were 2 rooms away, they knew you were on the phone? That energetically you had turned your attention away from them. And the next thing you knew, they were pulling at your pant leg, or they were, mommy, 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 right? They got it, that you had turned your attention somewhere else. I said, those emotions are the same exact thing. They're like the little parts of yourself who are pulling on your pant leg saying, please see me, please pay attention to me, please notice me, don't turn away from me.
I like the expression of your.
Oh my gosh, I never thought of it like that before. So if I actually give them my attention, they'll calm down. I said, absolutely.
And the fear is on that one, that if they do actually go into the fear or the anger or the sadness or the grief, is that it will be so overwhelming that they'll drown.
Yes. The tears will
but
never.
They will drown if they don't. That's the crazy part, So short term, it's very painful, and yes, you need probably somebody to hold your hand while you're doing it, and then as you face it and go underneath that, go underneath that, go underneath that, to really what's happening, and when you get the inspiration of what it is in that kernel of truth, it just falls away because you've recognized the kernel of truth. The little child or emotion is trying to say, hi, this is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. And, I said to her, it's like your 2-year-old having a tantrum. You don't tell the child, stop it, you shouldn't be doing that. And you should, most of us, if we're good nurturing moms, don't. Not that we don't have our moments, but we just hold space.
Yeah.
And we wait for the child to stop tantruming. And then we say, are you okay now? Or, okay, when you're finished, then we'll, right?
Yeah. And when you take it on an energetic basis, that's when we're in contraction and nothing can come in. When we're actually in our heart and meeting that, we relax and it expands. And then new possibilities can come in. One really good little tip is that if you're really in a state and you just get into hysterical overwhelm, I used to be really good at. I don't do it often these days. Somebody taught me just be in that, hold that space, and visually expand my energy field out in a circle. Then all of a sudden, the compacted overwhelm here had space to breathe. And everything then turned upside down, and you go, well, the problem isn't as big as I thought it was, because energetically I've given it more space to breathe.
Right. So you go from contraction into expansion.
Yeah.
And the breath, which Matt also talks about, right?
Yeah.
The breath.
It's a breath, and you expand, and suddenly it's not overwhelming. It's and from an energetic point, and I think we don't see emotions and we don't see life in an energetic form. And I think if we could start doing a little bit more of that, we would actually be quite surprised how much easier life can be, because we've tried to think our way out of it, and thinking, which is the ego, doesn't get you there. It's a really good tool if well managed, but when it goes ape shit, I'm going to say, around the place.
Well, and again, it's the male, the masculine and feminine part again. The powering through it, the needing to get over it, the needing to deal with it and move on, right? And just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get a hold of yourself and go back to work and dig in and just get it done. That's that out of balance masculine. The feminine is the breathing in or the breathing out, or moving into expansion. It's the allowing the space. It's mothering that part of yourself that needs to be loved in that moment, right? And I can remember when I was in college, I can't remember whether it was a psychology class or a women's studies class, but they were doing a comparison between like positive traits and negative traits. And so, they were putting them up on the board. And then as it turned out, all of the positive traits were masculine, strong, and all of the feminine traits, all of the negative traits were feminine. And I don't remember whether they were actually trying to tell us that was the truth or trying to point out that was not true. But, that's sort of what we're talking about. These what we used to term weak, was our emotion, being caring and forgiving and understanding and accepting. And, all of that was identified as sort of a weakness.
Well, if you go to, I don't know whether you've done any NLP, but I'm a master NLP practitioner as well, somewhere in all those certifications.
Along the way, why not?
Along the way, I did, another 2-year course there. But what I found was interesting, I am very much into values. I think values are important, but I actually believe we need to be looking at intangible values as against some of the values that used to come up on those pieces of paper. Money and this, and they're just, and to me, they are energy, and they are at the result of the wellspring of who we actually are, or the spring well of actually who we are. And when that alignment starts to happen, you magnetize things to you. That's the truth of, this business of going out and pounding the streets and all that, pushing Sisyphus uphill. It's too exhausting. It's burnout. It's not true. It's not balanced. And as you say, the strengths. See, men, to me, the masculine role is a caring role. They're here to protect. Well, when I say protect, I'm not protect the little woman. I'm not saying that, but they're here as in service to care and, on the bigger bit. And most men don't know how to do that. They're not taught that. It's not part of who they are. And as a little boy, they're taught not to cry, and to be tough, and that's where the bullying comes. And I think one of the things I wanted to mention is that we now have a situation in our universe, energetically and vibrationally, that we now have the energies from out there to support this kind of shift.
Yes.
Whereas 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, this energy for us to shift was here, but it was, it was like cracking a couple of concrete eggs. Whereas now it's much softer, it's much easier to move from one to the other. And it's interesting that somebody like Matt he's been around for quite 10 years, but it's only in the last year and a half that his work suddenly, flourished. Because the energy is there to support everybody being more in that space. And when we're looking at, when I look at my work, helioseparation, it's time to marry the ego and the soul. Time to bring them together to stop that separation in that
that disconnection. Yeah. I mean, even my ministry, so I've been ordained for 10 and a half years now. And part of the focus of the ministry program that I was in was about the reemergence of the divine feminine energy on the planet, looking at the balance of Yeshua and Magdalene, and then about peace studies. So St. Francis of Assisi and Lady Clare as models of that balanced energy, both within themselves and then in that partnership, right?
Yeah,
and, it was very clear in that program that it was the time for the reemergence of the feminine energy on the planet. The 2,000 years, how many years ago was it now that the Dalai Lama said, it will be, the Western women who will save the world. And I don't say that arrogantly, but, we have the means, we have the reach, the education, the potential to be able to do that so much more than certainly women, in many other places in the world. And it's our responsibility now. I mean, I see it as a responsibility to step in and use whatever privilege I have by virtue of being educated, having had my needs met, having had the not only the opportunity, but the gift to do as much of this kind of work. You were kidding about the NLP, but we've done a lot of work. We've had the funds and the resources to be able to bring ourselves to this place. And
it is up to us, as you say, to step into the power of our and to start leading from that space. And then my mind goes to women in third world countries. And I look actually, and I did a whole lot of research the other day, and it brought tears to my eyes when you actually see what so many women in countries where they have little money, and how this power is actually starting to rise up, and they're going, we need to keep our own seas. We need to save the water. We need to actually have a cooperative here for food. And they're doing it on the grassroots level, which we presume we've already got handled because we've got supermarkets. But we need to start looking at getting back to basic roots.
More connected to the earth, more connected to the matriarchy.
So to me, it's actually, it's happening in all women, but it's actually looks different in different cultures because the needs are different. And we have a lot of women who are running around on an empty tank of petrol in the Western world who have no idea how to actually love themselves and fill themselves up.
Yeah. And I want to just say that again, this idea that, quote, the Western women are going to save the world is not said arrogantly, because I think many women around the world have a more firmly established sense of that support of other women, of the communal nature of, being together, of holding the community together, that we have moved far away from in this Western.
They definitely can teach us.
We have plenty to learn from them. So again, it's this collaboration. What gifts do you bring and what gifts do I bring? And how can we, integrate and support each other in this mutual desire to have a future that works for more people?
Yeah. I keep going back to the Lemurian age where we had the golden age. It'll happen, I'm sure. One day it'll happen on this planet. Hopefully I'll see it. We'll see.
There's actually, I'm just inspired to say for anyone listening, there's a wonderful project going on now. I don't know if you're aware of it, that Sprite Loriano is heading up, called the Water Bearers. And she's doing a worldwide project to get 100 women leaders to get 100 other women to each buy a water filter for $50 that will provide water for, I don't know how many people, for 100 years. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. It's an amazing project. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can go to the Water Bearers. And if the team that I'm on, there are, these 100 different teams. The leader of my team is a woman named Imani Mamalushan, and she's right here in Connecticut with me. And so if you're feeling inspired to support women and support the planet and support sustainability and make a small contribution, $50 will buy a whole filter, but you can certainly, contribute less than that if that's not in your budget, to start to bring, clean water to those places in the world that don't have that. We take it so much for granted here. And that's just, again, another expression of this beautiful divine energy that we're birthing. This tribe of women who came together from all over the world in this tribe to bring water to the places in the world and the people in the world who don't have it. So,
yeah, it's true.
Well, believe it or not, we are at the top of the hour here. Do you want to say anything more, Penelope, about your book? We can put it in the chat box for people who might be watching later.
I can.
Or how many people might get in touch with you? How would you like to?
Now I'll tell you what I'll do. You can, if somebody has any questions they want to ask me, how about that? I'll just pop in. I'll send it down here. There we go. That's my email address.
Oh, great.
And you can check my website out here. And it spelled it right. And we can continue a conversation if you need any support or help. But there's some information on my website that's quite interesting. So. Great.
And you work with people, with women around the world. I know you're in Sydney.
Yeah, I'm in Sydney, but I'm in Sydney, Australia, but I work with people online, and I'm doing, I have a mentoring system, which again is on the website, so I won't go through it at this, but I do what they call a crisis session, and then I do a 6-month program as well. But there are ways that we can talk about that.
Great.
Yeah. Yes, and my book is actually also on there as well. It's called Dig Deep and Fly High. But it's all about the book is on there, and there's a link to Amazon if you'd like to treat yourself.
Awesome. Well,
Lovely.
This has been delightful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you halfway across the world, or 3/4 of the way across the world. My geography is terrible, so.
No, we're just down on that.
My daughter was in New Zealand. It felt like she was very far away.
Yeah, no, we're a long way away if you flew. No, it's only 15 hours to LA flying. That's not direct. That's not too bad. But another 5 hours to the East Coast. But it is a long way away for just a quick. And when I was in London, you go to Europe for the weekend, Paris or Berlin or Rome.
Yeah.
Not here.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll get down your way and we'll do a retreat in Bali or something or some.
Well, that's other than mentoring, I will be doing webinars, but my big aim is to do retreats.
Yeah, that's where I'm heading to.
Self-love retreats. Yeah, and Bali, and around different parts of the world, which are more sort of spiritual sites and maybe hot spring sites. That's down the road. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Catherine,
for your invitation.
Yeah, thank you for your invitation. Thank